Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lit Lounge. If you've been following our Parts of Speech series, you already know that every word in a sentence has a particular job to do. In our first video, we met nouns and pronouns. Then, in the second video, we learned about verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. If you haven't watched those videos yet, don't worry. You can check them out first. I've pinned the links in the description below. So, we are almost at the end of our journey. But there are still three important parts of speech waiting to be introduced. And these three are quite interesting because they help us show relationships, connect ideas, and express emotions. Imagine you're building a bridge. You have all the important parts, the people, the actions, and the descriptions. But there's one problem. Nothing is connected. That's where some very important words come in. How do we show the relationship between different words? How do we connect one idea to another? And how do we express certain feelings like surprise, happiness, pain, or excitement? That's exactly what we are going to explore in today's lesson. We are going to learn about the final three parts of speech: prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And by the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of all eight traditional parts of speech. So let's get started. Before we move on, let's take a quick look at what we've learned so far. So far, we have already met five important parts of speech. A noun is a naming word. It names a person, place, animal, thing, or idea. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. Words like he, she, it, and they are pronouns. A verb tells us about an action or a state. Words like run, eat, write, and is can be verbs. An adjective gives us more information about a noun or pronoun. It describes things such as a beautiful flower or a tall building, and an adverb gives us extra information about a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. It can tell us how, when, where, or how often something happens. For example, she sings beautifully. She speaks loudly. So, we have already learned five members of our parts of speech family. Now it's time to welcome the final three. They are preposition, conjunction, interjection. Each one has a special job to do in a sentence. So let's meet them one by one and understand exactly what they do. Let's start with prepositions. Now, the word preposition might sound a little complicated at first, but don't worry, the idea is actually quite simple. A preposition is a word that shows the relationship between one thing and another. Let's understand this with a few simple examples. Look at these sentences. The book is on the table. Here, the word on tells us where the book is in relation to the table. The cat is under the chair. Here, under tells us where the cat is in relation to the chair. The boy is behind the door. The word behind shows the preposition of the boy in relation to the door. And one more, the school is near my house. Here, near tells us the relationship between the school and my house. So, Words like on, under, behind, and near are called prepositions. They help us understand where something is, when something happens, or how one thing is related to another. That's why you can think of prepositions as relationship words. Very often, they help us talk about place, position, time, or direction. Let's look at a few more examples. The keys are in my bag. Here, in tells us where the keys are. She is sitting beside her friend. Here, beside tells us where she is in relation to her friend. The train arrived after lunch. Here, after tells us when the train arrived. And we walked through the park. Here, through tells us about the direction or movement. Now, let's look at some common prepositions. In, on, at, under, over, behind, beside, near, between, after, before, through, and into. You don't have to memorize all of them at once. As you read and listen to English, you'll come across these words again and again. Here's a simple trick to identify a preposition. Ask yourself, does this word tell me where, when, or how one thing is related to another? If it does, it may be a preposition. Let's take one final example. The ball is under the chair. Now ask yourself, where is the ball? The answer is under the chair. The word under shows the position of the ball in relation to the chair. So, under is the preposition. And that's the basic idea of a preposition. Preposition help us understand relationships between words, especially relationships of place, position, time, and direction. Once you start looking for them, you'll notice prepositions everywhere in English. Now, let's talk about conjunctions. The word conjunction may sound a little difficult, but the idea is actually very simple. Imagine you have two separate ideas. For example, I like tea, I like coffee. We could say them as two separate sentences, but English gives us a simple way to connect these ideas. We can say, I like tea and coffee. Here, the word and connects the two ideas. And that's exactly what a conjunction does. A conjunction is a word that joins words, phrases, or sentences together. You can think of conjunctions as bridges. Just like a bridge connects two places, conjunctions connect two words or ideas. Let's look at a few examples. Rahul and Maya are friends. Here, and connects two names, Rahul and Maya. I was tired, but I finished my work. Here, but connects two ideas that are different or contrasting. And you can stay here or come with us. Here or gives us a choice between two possibilities. So the words and, but, and or are conjunctions. Let's understand what each one does. The word and adds information. We use and when we want to add one thing to another. For example, I bought apples and oranges. We are talking about two things, and joins them together. The word but shows contrast. We use but when two ideas are different or opposite in some way. For example, She is young but very talented. Being young and being talented are not opposites, but shows a contrast between the two ideas. The word or gives a choice. We use or when we want to give a choice between two or more possibilities. For example, would you like tea or coffee? Here, or gives us two choices. These three, and, but, and, or, are some of the most common conjunctions you'll see in English. But there are many more. For example, because, although, since, while, if. Let's look at one example. I stayed home because it was raining. Here, because connects two ideas. I stayed home and it was raining. So, because is acting as a conjunction. Here's a simple trick to remember. Whenever you see a word that joins words, phrases, or ideas together, check whether it is a conjunction. Think of it this way: conjunctions are the bridges of a sentence. They help different parts of a sentence come together and make our ideas clearer and more connected. Now, let's meet perhaps the most expressive member of our parts of speech family, the interjection. The word interjection may sound a little unfamiliar, but the idea is actually very easy. An interjection is a word or short phrase that expresses a sudden feeling or emotion. Think about the words we naturally say when something unexpected happens. Wow! Oops! Ouch! Hooray! Oh no! Yay! We often say these words without even thinking. They immediately express what we are feeling. Let's see how they work in sentences. Wow, that's an amazing painting. Here, wow expresses surprise or admiration. Ouch, that hurt. Here, ouch expresses pain. Hooray! We won the match! Here, hooray expresses happiness or excitement. And oops, I dropped my phone. Here, oops expresses a feeling of making a small mistake or something going wrong. Notice something interesting. Interjections are often used at the beginning of a sentence and they can usually stand on their own. They don't normally have a grammatical connection with the rest of the sentence. Their main purpose is simply to express an emotion or reaction. Different interjections can express different feelings. Let's look at a few examples. For surprise, we use the words wow, oh. For amazement, amazing, incredible. For pain, ouch, ow. For joy or excitement, hooray, yay. For sadness, alas. For disappointment or a small mistake, oh no, oops. So, here's a very simple trick to remember an interjection. If a word or short expression suddenly shows a strong feeling or reaction, it is likely to be an interjection. Think of it this way: interjections are the emotion words of English. They allow us to show our feelings quickly and naturally, whether we are surprised, excited, happy, hurt, disappointed, or sad. Now that we have learned about prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections, let's see if we can identify them in a few simple sentences. Don't worry, I'll give you a moment to think before revealing the answer. The dog is under the table. Now, can you identify the preposition? Yes, the answer is under. That's right. Under tells us where the dog is in relation to the table, so it is a preposition. The second sentence, I wanted to go outside, but it was raining. Can you find the conjunction? Yes, the answer is but. Exactly. But connects two different ideas. So it is a conjunction. Third sentence. Wow, that's beautiful. Now, can you spot the interjection? The answer is wow. Wow expresses a feeling of surprise or admiration. So, it is an interjection. See, it's not so difficult after all. You're already getting the hang of identifying these parts of speech. Keep practicing, and soon you'll be able to spot them naturally whenever you read or hear English sentences. Before we finish today's lesson, let's take a moment to revise the three parts of speech we learned today. Don't worry, we'll keep it simple. Preposition shows a relationship. A preposition shows the relationship between one word or thing and another. It can tell us about place, position, time, or direction. Some common prepositions are in, on, under, near, behind, between. For example, the book is on the table. Here on shows the relationship between the book and the table. So remember, preposition is equal to relationship. Conjunction is a word that joins words, phrases, or sentences together. Some common conjunctions are and, but, or, because, if. For example, I was tired, but I finished my work. Here, but connects two ideas. So remember, conjunction is equal to connection. An interjection is a word or short expression that shows a sudden feeling or emotion. Some common examples are wow, ouch, hooray, oops, oh no. For example, wow, that's beautiful. Here, wow expresses surprise or admiration. So remember, interjunction is equal to emotion. And here's a super simple way to remember all three. Preposition shows relationship, conjunction connects, interjection shows emotion. Relationship, connection, emotion. Keep these three words in mind, and you'll find it much easier to remember what each of these parts of speech does. Congratulations! You now know all 8 traditional parts of speech. Let's list them one last time: noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, interjection. Every English sentence is built using these building blocks. The more familiar you become with them, the easier grammar becomes. And the best part? You don't need to memorize complicated definitions. Just understand the job each word does. That's what grammar is really about. Before we end this Parts of Speech series, there's one important question that some of you might have. You may have noticed that I explained 8 parts of speech: noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, and interjection. But if you have studied English grammar from some modern books, you might be wondering, what about determiners? Aren't they also a part of speech? That's a very good question. The answer is yes and no, depending on which grammar system you're following. In this series, we have followed the traditional classification of the parts of speech, which has been taught for centuries. According to this system, English has 8 parts of speech. Words like a, an, the, this, that, some, each, and every were traditionally treated as special kinds of adjectives because they come before nouns and help describe or limit them. However, in modern English grammar, these words are usually placed in a separate group called determiners. So, what exactly is a determiner? A determiner is a word that comes before a noun and gives us more information about it. It may tell us which one, whose, how many, or which specific thing we are talking about. For example, a book, the teacher, this pen, my bag, some students, every child. These words don't describe the quality of the noun like adjectives do. Instead, they help us identify or limit the noun. So, if you ever hear someone say that English has 9 parts of speech, don't get confused. They are simply following the modern classification where determiners are treated as a separate part of speech. Both systems are correct. In this series, we have followed the traditional 8 part model because it's still widely taught in schools and forms a strong foundation for learning grammar. We'll learn determiners in detail in a separate lesson very soon. And that's it for today's lesson. You have now completed our introduction to the parts of speech. Give yourself a pat on the back because you have learned one of the most important foundations of English grammar. But this is only the beginning. In the coming videos, we'll go deeper into each part of speech with lots of examples, tricks, common mistakes, and real life usage. We'll also learn topics like types of nouns, types of pronouns, tenses, subject verb agreement, articles, phrases and clauses, sentence structure, and much more. So, if you want to build strong English grammar step by step, make sure you subscribe and join me in the next lesson. Thank you for watching. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy learning!